Hey, everybody. Welcome to How To Tuesday. This week, we're going to answer a question from the podcast at Saltwater Experience. Email. That's one way you can get in touch with me. Podcast at Saltwater Experience. That's a dedicated email address that comes right here. I see it and I answer these questions. You can also text 305-930-7346. Those are the two primary ways that you can get in touch with me. And for the How To Tuesday and the Physical Friday, I get a lot of questions on those two methods of communication, and we do a lot of shows. So I appreciate it when you do write in and you have a question that you want to, just like Bob Johnson did today. He says, what is the comparison of knot strength of 16 and 20 pound fluorocarbon of the non-slip mono loop and the perfection loop knot for bonefish and tarpon flies? Okay, he has a second question. We're going to do that next week about non-slip mono loop, perfection loop, and figure 8 loop knot on 60 and 80 pounds. So wait till next week for that one. But on this week's How To Tuesday, we're going to answer the first one, which is about the perfection loop versus the non-slip mono loop. Now, the perfection loop is a knot that I do use quite often and have used over the years for fly fishing. If you were to buy an Orvis knotless tapered leader, I know that they do it. I think Rio also had this knot on the end of their knotless tapered leaders, but I'm not sure. I know Orvis did. It's the perfection loop. So there was a loop on the end of the leader. You would loop to loop from your fly line to your leader, and it's always been a very strong knot. It does have a perpendicular tag end, which does get grass sometimes or something like that. So that is one of the negatives of the knot, but it's a very strong knot. Some people do use it to tie on flies with the perfection loop. So the perfection loop versus the non-slip mono loop, that actually does make sense. We're going to tie this with 15 pound, contrary to what Bob asked for. That's what I have. 15 pound J Fluoro by Daiwa and 20 pound J Fluoro by Daiwa. I have already tied the knots. We're ready to go. We're going to test it on the Next Tech tester that I have right here. We're going to start with the 15 pound perfection loop. I've got that right here. Put that on the scale. And at 15 pounds, it's going to break pretty heavy, I would imagine. Okay. Not as heavy as I thought. 10.82 pounds for the perfection loop on 15. Now let's reset it. Both these knots are tied basically the same way. Pull on the 20. That one's a lot stronger. Okay, the 20 broke at 19.49 pounds. That may be more consistent with the breaking strength of the perfection loop because it does generally break pretty heavy. So the 15 may have broken a little premature. Okay, now let's compare that to the 15 pound non-slip mono loop. We've got that one prepared and ready to go right here. 15 pound non-slip mono loop broke at 10.27. That seems light. Okay, let's try the 20. And the 20 pound non-slip mono loop. 4 turns on the non-slip mono loop. That one much stronger. Didn't get it to break on the first go. I have to wrap it a little different around my hands. I was about to cut my hands. That's a good sign for that knot. Okay, 20 pound, testing again. $17.45. Okay, so on this test, despite what you came into this thinking, like myself, would have thought that the non-slip mono loop was better, but 20 pound, the perfection loop broke at 19.49, and at 20 pound, the non-slip mono loop broke at 17.45. So a little stronger, at least in that test. And then at the 15 pound, they were about the same, 10.82 for the Perfection and 10.27 for the non-slip mono loop. I would have thought that the non-slip mono loop would have outperformed the Perfection loop every time, but that's why we do these tests. I was wrong. The Perfection loop tests a little bit stronger. So there you go, Bob. I appreciate the question. I hope that helps you to determine which knot you like to tie better. And wow. I'm quite surprised. Okay. Thank you, Bob. We're going to do your next one on the 60 and 80 pound knots right after this for next week. So we'll see you next week. Thanks again for the question. If you have questions, write podcast@saltwaterexperience.com or text 305-930-7346. Maybe we'll do your question on the air just like we did Bob's. All right. See you next week.